Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum all. I welcome all of you on behalf of Institute of Urbanism and HPS, Henrik Paul Siftong, in STPI Sustainable Development Conference. My name is Asmatullah and I'm Communication Officer, Institute of Urbanism. Institute of Urbanism was established in 2019 as Islamabad-based policy research think tank focused on the sustainable and nature-inclusive cities. Today, Institute of Urbanism, in collaboration with Henrik Paul Stiftong, HPS, is presenting a panel titled Circular Economy in Pakistan, the Untapped Potential of Waste to Resource at the Sustainable Development Policy Institute's 26th Annual Sustainable Development Conference, STC. The panel will share and present the challenges and opportunities surrounding around waste management in Pakistan, emphasizing the needs to transition from linear and model of economy to a circular economy. And the esteemed speakers will also share valuable insights to the perspective on the circular issue of the waste management in country. Let me introduce you to the panel, and then I would also request the panel members to come on the stage so we can formally start this session. The panel is having together a diverse array of experts. Ms. Aisha Majid, Senior Program Coordinator at Institute of Urbanism, will present research findings on waste as resource, offering a comprehensive view of current landscape in Islamabad and Lahore. I would request her to please come on stage. And then we have Mehrun Nisa, COO of Saaf Suthra Sheher. She will discuss about business challenges and opportunities. And then we have Ms. Farah Rashid, Sustainable Lead at Angro Foundation. She will emphasize resource efficiency and support of small and medium enterprises. I would also request her to please join us on stage. And then we have Dr. Bishnu Raj Opriti, Research Director at NCCR. He will provide the insights into successful circular economy and cases in South Asia and also in different areas. And meanwhile, we have Ms. Lee Stephanie Chu from ISCAP. She will also be sharing gender perspective and also share the global trends in circular economy and waste management. Then we have, we'll be having Dr. Ali Sahab with us, Deputy Director and Deputy Secretary in Prime Minister Youth's program. And he will also be joining us for the closing remarks. So we have the session. So before any delay, as we already have a very short time and requested the members as well for 10 to 12-minute presentations and discussion. First of all, we'll have presentation and different kind of insights from the experts with us in the panel. And then we'll move toward the question and answer session and then closing remarks. So first of all, we'll be having Ms. Aisha Majid with us, and she'll be sharing the presentation, which is a case study from Lahore and Islamabad in perspective of waste management as circular economy as untapped business. And she's a Senior Program Coordinator at Institute of Urbanism. So first of all, I welcome her.
I hope I'm audible now. So today I'm going to share findings from a study that Institute of Urbanism conducted mainly in Islamabad and Lahore. The purpose was to actually map what kind of solid waste management is happening in these two cities. I will briefly go over the waste management sector in Pakistan and then focus more on how it is being managed in cities. And then I will present the study, the research findings of our studies. So in Pakistan, around 48.5 million tons of solid waste is being generated annually. And the annual rate of growth for this is 2.4%. And big cities are a major contributor to this increase in waste generation. However, only 60 to 70% of the waste that is being generated is being collected. There are no sanitary landfill sites in cities, and most can only be classified as dumping sites. Segregation at source is not a formal practice. However, it is being done by the informal sector. And as far as recycling is concerned, most of the it is mostly being done by the private sector. According to ADB, 80% of the valuable recyclables are recovered before they reach the dump sites. Moreover, in Punjab, around 90% of the PET bottles are being recovered before they reach the dump sites. However, mostly this is being done by the informal sector and the private sector. Then the waste sector has a lot of impact on health as well as environment. So we see that around 5 million people die because of waste-related illnesses annually. And waste contributes around 3% to the total GHG emissions in Pakistan. However, one thing that we need to I need to highlight is that there is a lot of inconsistent data when it comes to waste. So we do not have comprehensive methodologies which can actually calculate the amount of waste that is being generated as well as the amount of waste that is being recycled. So this is an area that we really need to focus on in Pakistan. When we look at the institutional arrangement for solid waste management, we see that after the 18th Amendment, it has mostly become a provincial concern. And the Ministry of Climate Change, it basically acts as a coordinating ministry for solid waste management, and that's about it. The provincial waste management boards, as well as they develop the policy as well as the implementation framework, and the collection is being done mostly by the local and municipal governments. In large cities, we have public sector waste management companies, and in Punjab, we have 8, and in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, we have around 7. And the kind of data management that is being done by the waste management companies are better than what we see nationally. As far as the regulatory framework is concerned, we do not have any policy at the national or provincial level that talks about waste minimization or presents a framework for actually using waste as a resource. We do have policies that briefly touch on various aspects that would improve waste management. However, we do not have an action plan for circular economy as such. Then we have included some waste-related aspects in the NDCs as well. However, once again, what we're missing is the implementation framework for that. This is the amount of waste that is being generated daily by the big cities, and we see that that is somehow proportional to the population as well. So Lahore is generating around 7510 tons of waste daily, and for Islamabad, it's 1575. One thing that is consistent with the developing countries is that the amount of kitchen waste being produced in Pakistan by the cities is the largest amount. So this is where we actually need to focus on when it comes to intervention or making waste or using waste as a resource. Another thing is that we're producing a lot of plastic waste, and I think everybody knows that there are interventions being done, especially in Pakistan, by the private sector in this arena. However, there's still a lot of untapped potential in this regard as well. So now we move on to the research findings. So we did a survey in which around 300 households were surveyed in Islamabad, and we collected information from around 300 households in Lahore, and we did some KIIs and focus group discussions as well. So the areas that we looked in Islamabad were F7, F11, G6, G9, I10, I8, Barakau, Banigala, and Chatta Bakhtawar. In Lahore, we went to Gulbarg, Johar Town, and Chowk Yatim Khana. So in Islamabad, we see that before 2015, the Capital Development Authority was responsible for managing waste. However, after 2015, the Local Government Act came, and MCI was given the task of actually of managing waste in Islamabad. However, since 2015, we do not have a local government in place, which is why CDA has been given the task again. and it is managing waste in 21 sectors in Islamabad and the 4 model villages. However, the work that is being done in the rural areas of Islamabad or the non-CDA sectors, that ICTA is responsible for that. Currently, Islamabad has run out of space for dumping waste in its current dumping site, which is of I-12, and they're looking for a new location. And the proposed location is Losar. However, it has not been finalized yet. What we found out in Islamabad was that a lot of people said that the greatest amount of waste was the kitchen waste that was being produced. So that is something that we really need to work on. There is an organization called IRRC in Islamabad, which is transforming some of the kitchen waste into fertilizer. And that is a profitable business that they're doing, and it is only doing for a sector. However, what is required is scaling up of such enterprises. Then we see that 35% of the people were segregating waste at source, and they were mostly doing it for economic purposes, where they either sell it for themselves or they give it to their house help to actually earn a little extra amount. One thing that most of the people said that was they don't throw away cooked food or they don't throw away roti. So they're already segregating that. And many of the people, they were actually selling or they were just giving away roti to their milkmen who use it for livestock feed. So that is something that is already being practiced in Islamabad, and that is something that we need to capitalize on and somehow turn it into or formalize that. Then around 60% of the people were satisfied with the current solid waste management system in their sector. However, one thing that we need to note is that most of these people were from the CDA sectors. People who belong to the rural areas, they were not, because they had to somehow, come up with their own plan to manage waste, and they were not satisfied with the kind of facilities that were available in their areas. Then CDA does not charge for providing these services. However, some of the people, they would willingly give some amount to the people who work in their streets. But those who live in rural areas of Islamabad or the non-CDA sectors, they're regularly paying someone to take care of their waste. And the amount ranged from around 500 to 750 and even 1,000 rupees in some cases. And these were the households that were not very economically well off in the first place. Then what we saw was that there is a lot of lack of awareness when it comes to the kind of impact waste has on environment as well as on health. So people were not really aware of that. They couldn't really pinpoint what kind of impact waste has on them. And they were not really aware. Only a quarter of the people were aware of the concept of using waste as resource, and that too because they could tell that there was a plastic road that was made in Islamabad, and that is the only thing that they could cite. So we see that there's a lack of awareness when it comes to that, and that is something that we really need to work on. Then 69% of the people were willing to adopt the multiple bin system. However, they wanted some sort of economic benefit or some sort of benefit that would come from it. Why? Because they said that there is no point in segregating waste at source if it is not being taken care of in that way. So they wanted some kind of benefit from it, and then they were willing to even adopt the system. So when we move on to Lahore, the Lahore Waste Management Company is basically responsible for dealing with waste management in Lahore. But people were not very happy. The households were not really happy with the performance. Why? Because they were not collecting waste from door to door. However, in market spaces, people were very happy because they were doing a good job cleaning the streets and cleaning the commercial areas. However, 64% of the people actually had to hire informal waste pickers to come and collect waste from their households. And they were also paying a lot to them as well. So as opposed to Islamabad, what we see is that 75.8% of the people were paying some regular amount to the waste collection services in Lahore. Then around 43% of the people reported that if initiated, they would support recycling projects in their areas, but once again, they wanted some kind of benefit from it themselves, maybe in economic terms or in social terms, and then they were willing to, support such projects. 12.3% of the people reported that occurrence of open waste burning is common in their area. And the reason for that mainly was to reduce the amount of accumulated waste. So we do see that open waste burning is also an issue there, and people were not really aware of any fines or any policies against such practices in Lahore or in Islamabad either. So we do know that in Islamabad there is a fine, but nobody knew the amount, or nobody had ever faced such fines before. Then only 10% of the people were familiar with the concept of using waste as resource. So once again, this is an area that we really need to work on. And then people were willing to adopt the multiple bin system. However, once again, 53% were willing to pay if there was some reward, or if there was some kind of economic benefit that they would get from it. So with that, I would hand over the floor to Asmat again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aisha, for the very brief and detailed presentation, in a way that it was an insight for Islamabad and Lahore for the solid waste management and what are the current practices. And right now we have Dr. Ali Malik Saab, who has joined us, Deputy Secretary in Prime Minister's Youth Program, and he will be also coming on the floor shortly. So please join us on the stage, and he'll be here for the closing remarks and also be checking the session as well. Right now, for the without any delay, I would like to move toward the second presentation from Ms. Mehrun Nisa. She is the co-founder and CEO of Saaf Suthra Sheher Private Limited, a company providing responsible waste management solutions to the conscious citizens and businesses of Islamabad, with a focus on ensuring their waste is collected and recycled in a socially and environmentally ethical way. So she'll be talking about the kind of challenges and opportunities that are there for businesses around the collection and use of waste as resource in Pakistan, both at community level and the policy level. So hand over to you, please. Thank you.
I hope everybody can hear me. Okay. Yeah, I think that's the wrong presentation. So while we get the presentation there, I'll just introduce myself, although Asmat has done a great job of that. So basically, I am the co-founder of a company called Saaf Suthra Sheher. We are set up as a private sector company, and the aim is to provide recycling and responsible and sustainable waste management solutions to the commercial sector, households, businesses, etc. in Islamabad. So in this, I mean, I'm going to not talk too much on the policy level, etc. I'll just give you some of my experiences of having worked, of our company having working in this sector since 2017. So yeah.
Apologies. I would request to please come over here so that they can have recording as well for the larger audience.
Sure, sure.
So because they also have to record as well.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, so as I was saying, so I'm here to just talk about some of my experiences, the challenges that we faced trying to work as a formal enterprise in a very informal sector. What do I point it to, sir? Just, sorry. Yeah, okay, there we go. Okay, it's working now, sorry. So, I mean, I just wanted to start off by posing a few questions just to get everybody thinking about their waste. So, first of all, just a little bit about, I know Aisha went into a lot of detail on how much waste is produced, so I won't go into I think my first two slides are kind of not very relevant anymore because we have that information. But on average, and these are international estimates, we produce about 1.4 to 1.4 kgs of waste a day. That's every single person. So you can understand how much that actually accumulates to. If we segregate at source, so if we make that effort of dividing our wet and our dry waste, et cetera, in the houses, about 60% of our household waste can be recycled. And I'm talking about the dry waste. If we start composting our organic waste, that can be almost like 90%. And in offices, about 90% can be recycled. Of course, this is not happening because the major flaw that we have in the way we manage waste is that we don't segregate at source. And I'll go into this as we go along. So just like I said, I wanted to ask a question is that where does your waste go? So if we pose this question to anybody, I can assume or guarantee that most of you would not know where your waste goes. I mean, of course, you know that somebody takes it from your house, but what actually happens to it is something that most of us cannot answer. Honestly, I didn't know either till I got into this and we were setting up this enterprise. And I was shocked by the answers. And when I found out what is actually happening to the waste. So, I mean, I call this Islamabad the tip of the iceberg because I feel that if we look at the entire country, Islamabad is literally the tip of the iceberg when we talk about waste, because comparatively, it is a city which has much better waste management and is much cleaner than other cities. We know that, again, not going to details, but of course, over 1,000 tons of waste are generated. And as Aisha gave a very accurate figure of about 1,500 and something tons of waste a day. While some of it is being collected, and I believe there was an article in the newspaper in Dawn maybe yesterday or day before where I think CDA said they collect about 700 tons a day. So the rest, as you can imagine, is going into our green areas. It's being burnt mostly, and it's going into our streams. Islamabad is blessed with a lot of green areas, with a lot of streams, and which unfortunately, if you peek into any of them, you will find that they are mostly filled with waste. Of course, the sector is largely informal, even though we have a collection system. I mean, the sector is still mostly informal. And by informal, just to define informal, that means you have your waste pickers and your kabadis, and then many levels of kabadis and some sort of enterprises who manage that waste. So I can see it from there. Okay, so why did we start working in this? Oh, okay. So I'll just continue. So there is an unmet demand for waste management. So there are conscious businesses, enterprises, people who do want to properly manage their waste, right? Who do want solutions, who would like to know what happens to their waste. Of course, these are few and far. I'll admit to that, but they are there. But the solutions, when you kind of look out to it, like I think that Aisha presented, that maybe only 2% of people that they surveyed actually knew that there are formal solutions for them to access if they want to properly manage their waste. Of course, in most of the world, in the developed world, we will see that you have formal recycling systems that the government and municipalities do provide. Here we don't. So whatever solutions are there are either informal or they are far and few. Of course. So, I mean, there is space for interventions that don't exist. So and of course, the informal sector is very robust. I'll admit to it. And thanks to the informal sector, waste is managed somehow in Pakistan. If we didn't have this informal sector of kabadis and waste pickers, etc., and of course it has its flaws, it's exploitative, social and environmental issues, etc. But if they weren't there, we would probably have piles of waste because in most of our cities, the municipal services are just not enough to deal with the quantum of waste that's being generated every day. So things like reuse, recycle, upcycle, these are terms that are now kind of a little more prevalent in society. People think about them, people know of it. But generally, I mean, this is not something anybody thinks about when they talk about their waste or they think about their waste. And that's where we decided to come in and kind of bring these innovations and kind of bring these systems, which, to be honest, are not very innovative when we think about the global landscape, because segregating your waste into different bins and ensuring that it gets recycled is not anything new. But in Pakistan, it is something new. Okay, so Saaf Suthra Shahar. So what we're doing is, so we are basically providing some sort of formal solutions. We do work with a number of households, a number of offices, hotels, etc., who recycle their waste with us. So what to do is that we will help them set up proper segregation at source systems, different colored bins for paper, plastic, glass, organic, etc. And once we do that, we provide trainings, because of course, again, because this is not general or normal knowledge, it takes a while for anybody to get used to segregating their waste. And then we take the segregated waste, and we have a supply chain of formal, proper factories that we sell to, and they further recycle the waste into some sort of materials. And of course, I think our major thing here and our major challenge also is citizen engagement, because we have a mascot or called Pappu Recycles. So the idea was that if Pappu can do it, then everybody can do it, because as you know, Pappu is a very common nickname in Pakistan. So of course, this is also a challenge, because being responsible, I think, is the main thing that does not exist amongst people. It's not natural to be responsible for your waste. If somebody deems themselves as extremely responsible for their waste, they will be putting it into a bin and maybe not throwing it out of their car window. But that's where the responsibility ends. Nobody thinks about taking that responsibility further. So we work with households under Pappu Recycles, and like I said, we have these. We work with a number of corporate enterprises as well to set up these kind of zero waste solutions. So we provide everything from technical expertise to the final product of recycling the waste. So now coming to the point of why waste is not managed formally. Now this is where our experiences come in. So the first thing is that, like I just said, everybody's initial instinct is that waste is not my responsibility. This is somebody else's responsibility. But the fact is that waste is everybody's, and yet it is no one's, right? Because in the sense that we all produce waste, and yet we think that it is somebody else's job to manage it for us. Nobody wants to manage it themselves. And this is also a very cultural thing that exists, right? So nobody will, we even have issues emptying out the waste bin in our kitchens. You want somebody else to come and do it for you, because you don't want to empty the waste bin and carry that bag and throw it into a skip or a dump, etc. Like they were saying that, everybody wants a door-to-door collection system, but nobody will want to walk maybe 50 feet in their street and go throw it into a skip that the government has put there, which doesn't take a lot of effort. So, and the second is that, again, coming from the responsibility bit, there's very low interest in investing into waste management solutions. So people may want to be responsible. Yes, I want my waste to be recycled. But the minute they have to invest into it, and by invest, I mean things like putting up bins. Well, of course, it costs a little bit of money, but not a lot. But if you want to have a segregation at source system, then you have to spend a little bit of money for it. That's where kind of it's like, sorry, we cannot invest into managing our waste properly. And that's where you kind of hit that first hurdle, because, if there are plenty of informal and other ways where people will come and take your mixed up waste and take it, and then somebody will rummage through it and take out the right thing to recycle it and throw away the rest. But that's not fair to the person who picks it up. Why should they have to rummage through your dirty waste to take out anything that is salvageable and recyclable, when you can make that small bit of effort and put an extra bin in your house or a few extra bins in your workplace, right? Polluter pays principle. It's there worldwide. Everybody talks about it, that the one who pollutes the most should pay for it. It's the opposite here. Here, the idea is that even if I'm going to segregate my waste, I should get paid for it. So, I will sell it and I will get something. But if somebody is not going to pay me for it, then I'm not even interested in segregating it, right? Although it is waste, again, nobody creates waste to get money. You're creating waste because it's waste. It is useless for you. But yes, so that principle does not exist. And one example for me, which is a glaring example or an issue for us, is, as we always say, schools and colleges, universities. So till now, working in Islamabad for the last, since 2017, almost 6 years now, we haven't been able to get more than 1 or 2 schools to actually sign up for waste management. Because again, I mean, and you can understand the quantum of waste a school or a college produces. I mean, there are kids who every day go and every day they will have a pack of juice, a packet of chips, or a water bottle every single day. But when it comes to waste management or, putting in an infrastructure to manage the waste, it doesn't happen. And of course, because, they don't want to invest into it, even though that investment just isn't into managing their waste. Because if kids are right now taught to segregate their waste, it'll be normal for them. It'll be something that is kind of regular. It's something that you do on a regular basis. It's nothing abnormal. Whereas teaching adults, changing our own ways of working, I mean, that's a little hard. It takes a while to teach and to get an adult to change his ways. But for kids, so I mean, if schools do start adopting this, there's a lot of space. And of course, as Aisha already touched upon all the policies, there aren't many policies and incentives to actually have the formal sector come in, because the informal sector is so strong here. And of course, the informal sector has much less costs of operations, because of course, the informal sector is not paying taxes. The informal sector is not providing health insurance to their employees. They don't have to pay fair wages, etc. And of course, the way they manage their waste is also through informal factories and workshops, etc. So the costs are a lot less for them, which means that they are able to pay a lot more for the waste that they pick up than the formal sector. So until there are these sort of policies and incentives and like kind of an infrastructure in place for the formal sector to come in, I think there are a lot of hurdles that people will face into coming into this. I mean, we're doing this, but I think as of yet, in these many years, maybe one other similar enterprise has started working in Islamabad. Although, and I can tell you, I have at least in a year, I have 4 or 5 different young university students or, who are about to graduate come to me with ideas and take advice on how they can set up a similar enterprise. But it's difficult to take it through. So yeah, so that's about it. That's from my side. And yeah, just a little thought to leave you with. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Smerun Nisa, and particularly mentioned about the circular economy. Right now, we have Dr. Bishnu Raj Prithvi with us. He is currently serving as a research director at the Nepal Center for Contemporary Research, NCCR, and he'll be speaking about the landscape of circular economy in South Asia, especially when it comes to reusing waste. Sir, welcome, please.
Good afternoon. Thanks to the SDPI and Avid for inviting me to this forum. It was really nice to share with you. Earlier, I was regularly attending the SDPI conferences, but since 5-6 years, I was not, so it was quite refreshing for me. Basically, I will be sharing some of the research findings which we have conducted as a part of the broader research project in South Asia. And mainly, I will be looking at the conflict and cooperation in the solid waste management. So that will be my more or less the outline. Briefly, I will give the context and the conflict and cooperation and few of the findings what we found. This is managing solid waste is a serious problem in all the cities in South Asia. That is what we documented across the South Asian cities. More case studies were documented from Colombo, Kathmandu, and Trivandrum, and also the literature. And then I am just presenting this as a small part of the broader research project for 5 years, challenges of municipal solid waste management, learning from the post-crisis governance initiative in South Asia. It was mainly to look on what are the institutional and policy changes after the big crisis happens. For example, in our country, there was a big earthquake and also the Indian blockade for 6 years, which was stopped everything there. In Trivandrum also, there was a big flood in the solid waste side, and in Colombo, there was a landslide in the landfill side and serious crisis. So with that, we are looking what sort of institutional architectural change and policy responses. So I will be just sharing that. And on that study, what we find, there are several conflicts, but also there are possible collaboration area brought by the conflict and also the crisis. So basically, that was the message we found across the country. There are conflict, and once this conflict also opens the window for opportunity for the collaboration, and some innovation comes in. That is how we see. So basically, we were using the qualitative methods as well as quantitative survey method. And this one important element was how we analyze this conflict. What there are quite interrelated issues like always access to power and access to resources, or even control of resources was one of the main causes of the solid waste conflict in urban area. Also attitude, behavior, and intention of the key players of the solid waste, as well as access and benefit. Also, there was the influence of the professional troublemakers, like those who were getting benefit from creating conflict in the solid waste. So these are some of the conceptual area where we were analyzing. And also there is a area of cooperation. It's a bit complicated that there is more policy institutions and actors' attitude and behavior in one side, also vision and the commitment, as well as there is also the clarity on how they will cooperate. For example, this 3 R's principle she was presenting was quite one of the conceptual roadmap for them, and even bigger was the economic incentive. If there is a economic incentives, people start collaboration. So that is how we were trying to look. So my main points of sharing with you about the conflict is mainly the landfill side is one of the frequent source of conflict, and there were so many issues related with the landfill side. The other one also, the municipality who are originally responsible for the management of the waste in the urban areas, and the worker who are working to manage that. Always they have the tension, which was frequently coming, transporter, trucks, and others, as well as local community and the municipality. There was also environmentalist, often this conflict, this waste-related pollution, so water pollution, air pollution, sound pollution, and so many others. Environmentalists were quite resistant, and then there was a very clear conflict on that. Also, between the different level of the government, central government has some sort of rules, local government has lack of resources or contradiction in the rule. Even in some countries, the provincial government are engaged. So these role conflict was also very clear. And also the households who are generating the waste were not properly following the guidelines given by the municipality. So these were the series of conflict. Dumping side, and also contradictory policies, laws and regulation. The solid waste management related policies and laws contradicts with the other laws and other policy. At that time, it is quite difficult for those who are governing this solid waste. And also there was a unionism and a politicization, huge politicization, because every political party has their trade union, etc. And I was trying to jot down some of the drivers of this conflict. Basically, it is one psychology is that the solid waste management is the responsibility of government. They have paid the fee, they have to manage. So they were not serious at the beginning. Also, there is a division within the community, and also the lack of collection center or places where people can go and keep the garbage for the collection, and also stigmatization of the waste. These waste workers are bad, they are low class people, etc. That also creating quite common, and also the negligence of the overall sector by the key policy decision maker, because solid waste management is not really priority. For example, in Kathmandu, when there is a crisis, piles of waste thrown in the main street, and then only people start concerning. Otherwise, not so much structural. Yes, so there are economic driver, environmental driver, political drivers. This drive to the conflict, as well as also cooperation. So for the cooperation, once they know the risk of non-cooperation, loss of non-cooperation, then they rethink on that. Also opportunity for economic gains, because that was one of the most common reported evidences across the country, that if there is some sort of economic gain, then they start working on that. Also awareness, also periodic election, and local government and the political parties have to make commitment to sort it out, the solid waste related problem. Also, there was increasing engagement of the private sector, because private sector found opportunity to engage in that. So the private sector was one of the important drivers of the collaboration. And the circular economy was in fact not in our main research question when we have conducted it. But what happened, once we have started working on that, and then several very innovative ideas of transferring waste into more economic product, different type of the economic product, utensils, the garden material, compost, and so many other things they were starting, then we found that this was one of the key driver of collaboration and cooperation in the solid waste management sector. So the in Trivandrum, in Colombo, in Kathmandu, in all these big cities, there were several initiatives, mainly by the youth. Educated youth have started. One example, Dr. Sraj Pandey, who is currently in the advisor of the government of Nepal on the finance sector, he knows. There was one initiative started by one young lady, Khali Sisi, that became so popular, and she got the youth enterprises award from Asia level and something. Then all of a sudden, many youth are starting this type of economy. So what I realized, earlier also we were talking about the role of women in circular economy, the role of youth in circular economy. It is really driving force. That is what we have documented. Even in the rural remote area of Nepal, people are producing very nice type of the stool, chairs from the waste. These all plastics are turned into some sort of very valuable, useful economic product, and they are generating income, and their income level also increased, and their social respect also increased. And also this informal waste worker, they have coming together, organizing cooperatives, and then they have strong bargaining power, and at the end they have started more business and doing well. There is one very clear example in Kathmandu, which is well known for the waste related scholars and policy makers, that the waste workers cooperative is one of the successful model to promote the circular economy. They have generated huge amount of money, millions of rupees, and invested, and their members, those who were neglected earlier, are now quite prestigious, and they have the say in the municipality. They can go and negotiate. So in that type of the opportunity it brings, at the end, my conclusion is that conflict is not always dysfunctional. maybe violent conflict is dysfunctional, but conflict is also source of cooperation and collaboration. Conflict brings the opportunity, scope and opportunities to do that. And also once youth are convinced, once youth are motivated, they are able to demonstrate the importance, and that has been proven in all the three cities. They were doing so nicely, and even the plastic was used for a real commercial purpose in Sri Lanka. If you will go and see, there are so many small scale factories from this waste they are producing. So it is quite, but still what we realize across the country, the government is not fully supporting in terms of proper policy, proper institutional arrangement, proper legal framework to support that type of the initiative, and there is lacking. This lack is not only because they don't want to do, but also because of more other structural issues like the three tiers of government, role contradiction, and also the political parties negotiation, this and that. But what we realize, if there is a strong conducive policy, if there is a responsive institutional arrangement and support system in the municipality, and if there are proper legal provisions, this solid waste can be really reduced, drastically reduced, the way Pakistan, the colleagues Aisha was presenting, so much waste we are producing in each cities, same in Kathmandu or Nepal, same in India. The waste is quite a huge amount in big cities, but that can be reduced up to the 80% if there is a proper intervention from the government side and also cooperation from the local side. Thank you very much. If there are any concern, I will definitely share with you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vishnu, for the very detailed presentation and great insights indeed from different sector, and always say he's also mentioned the different examples and presented a sample from Nepal as well. Right now we have Ms. Farah Rashid with us. She is sustainability lead at Angro Foundation, where she has been instrumental in developing sustainability and strategies including carbon neutrality and plastic circularity measures since 2021, and she'll be presenting some of the models, practices, the existing private sector entities that can adopt, and for ensuring the resource efficiency, and how can they support the SMEs and youth in boosting waste to resource as a responsible citizen. So I welcome you, please.
Thank you so much, Asmat. So I understand the time crunch, so I'll be quick. So talking about Engro, a little bit of introduction. Since Engro is an industrial conglomerate, we work in various businesses, including fertilizers and PVC and telecommunications. So, so we understand that, you know, as a business, we do have an environmental footprint, and therefore we're looking into and practicing and implementing various environmentally friendly solutions in partnership with organizations who are on the ground and working towards solutions to the environmental problems we are facing today. So for the topic today, specifically under circular economy, and since we are into the plastic business, we do understand that circular plastics or circularity, bringing circularity in our waste management system is highly critical. So keeping that in mind, I'll quickly take you through of the initiatives that we are implementing in Pakistan, and we are planning some of them. And so a little bit of a context. I think Aisha already spoke about the background, the problem we are facing in the waste management sector in detail, but a little bit around the problem that we are facing, just one stats. So the first slide, please. So the total consumption of plastics in Pakistan at the moment is 2 million, as you can see the first bar that shows here. And out of this total consumption, we see a lot of waste which is discarded. So, you know, there is a huge value. I mean, waste should be seen as a resource. But right now, what we see here, what the stats tell us, although the data is 5 years old, but still we see that a lot of waste is being is considered as a waste, not as a resource. So we are discarding this waste, and if we see the recyclable, the bit which is recycled is extremely low. So this is the bar, the last bar that we need to raise higher. Next slide, please. So keeping in mind the critical challenges we are facing in Pakistan, I'll just walk you through the 3 critical ones. The first one is inefficient or suboptimal waste collection. We do have waste management companies in our major cities, but unfortunately their waste collection efficiency is not 100%. So a lot of waste remains uncollected. So we do understand, and also the waste is not segregated at source. So the segregation is not there, which is hampering the recyclability and upcycling, of waste into some usable products. So keeping that issue in mind, we initiated a circular plastics program, which has a 3-prong approach. The first approach is addressing the first challenge. So we have a plastic pilot unit, which basically focuses around experimenting and piloting different waste management models and see how successful can that be. So we have partnered with Akhtar Hamid Memorial Trust in Islamabad. And the idea is to start with a small pilot, comprising of 3,500, 4,000 households, and then see how it goes. And then once it is successful, we'll replicate it in other cities. So looking at the second critical challenge in the waste management system is the lack of data and knowledge and the latest stats around waste, recycling, and management. So we do understand that we do not find latest data or latest numbers when it comes to looking into policy and looking into what kind of studies have been conducted before. So all of the data is outdated, it lacks a lot of information which is needed to basically establish solutions around it. So we Engro established Circular Plastic Institute, which is a non-profit think tank that works on studies and baseline studies, and they come up with different ideas on conducting a life cycle assessment of waste and other similar studies, which will be helpful in carving out solutions to the challenges we are facing in the waste management sector. So the third challenge that we all know, and I think Meronissa and other panelists already spoke about, is the informal sector. Although informal sector plays a significant role in our waste management, because if they have not been there, the waste pickers and the waste dealers, then the waste would have been piled up and lying there on the streets, which we already see, but I think it would have been a bad picture than we already are facing today. So keeping that in view, our idea is to have a circular plastic seed investment fund. And right now we're working with a private formal waste collector and a recycler who converts plastic wastes into post-consumer resin. And the idea is that this resin should be, sold to the companies who are actually producing virgin plastic to replace virgin plastic. Because of course, we have a lot of potential in the waste management sector. We have a lot of plastic waste coming in that unfortunately is leaking into the environment because most of it is uncollected and goes unrecycled. So there is a lot of potential to tap in this sector, and with the help of private formal sectors as well as young enterprises that we are working with. And so we'll be investing into financially stable enterprises that will be working towards solutions of coming up with circular plastics model, which will be replicated across the country. So that's what Engro is envisioning at the moment for a zero waste future. And I hope that we have such models, upcoming models in the future as well, so we can pave the pathway towards zero waste future for Pakistan. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for being well in time as well. And then we have, right now we have Ms. Stephanie Chu. She serves as the Social Affairs Officer at the ESCAPE, Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. And she's also overseeing its social development portfolio, and currently she is leading the development of ESCAPE research initiatives. She'll be presenting the trends of circular economy globally and how green jobs can be created through such sectors. And she'll be also focusing on circular economy and gender perspective from Asia and the Pacific. So I welcome her over here. And meanwhile, the moment she reaches here, I'll be also opening the floor after her presentation, and then you can have question and answer as well. So please welcome.
Okay, a very good afternoon to everyone. I promise that my presentation will be short because I have some very interesting questions to ask all of you later. Okay, so there are two parts to my presentation. The first very briefly talks about the circular economy in Asia and the Pacific, where we live in. And the second one focuses on the very important role of women in the circular economy. So very often we think that, waste management, waste collection is like every other thing, it's gender neutral. But in actual fact, there are very differential roles of the different genders within the waste sector. And as a result, different policies, when they are implemented, will actually affect men and women differently. So that is what we will then do a little bit of a deep dive into. Okay, so now the first part on circular economy in Asia and the Pacific. Okay, so some of the statistics over here. So I think, you can read the statistics over here, but I think the main point that the statistics will show is really that Asia and the Pacific, we are consuming a lot. And although we are consuming a lot, we are not actually recycling enough. We are not actually segregating our waste enough. And this has led to a lot of pollution and a lot of damage to the environment. So I think that's the main point that should be brought through for this slide. Okay, and then we've also listed a couple of good practices. So one of them would be actually the recycling law from Japan, because they do state very clearly what are some of the obligations, that the different parts of manufacturing, different parts of the private sector have to play. And then the second one, which is the Sustainable Tourism Pledge in Thailand, that initiative is actually a public-private partnership. So it's with the Tourism Authority of Thailand, as well as the private sector. Expedia, as you know, is this travel site. And also UNESCO had given certain technical assistance. So basically, it actually asks for different hotels to actually pledge towards sustainability and also waste management. And these pledges are actually renewed annually so that the hotels actually keep up to them. And the third one would actually be in a little city in Korea, in the Republic of Korea. So this city was actually plagued with certain waste management issues. For example, there was a strong smell, but then after the city, the municipality authorities actually worked on it. Not only did they actually get rid of the smell and the unsightliness, but they've also managed to turn the waste into resources. And the exact figures, I leave you to see it from the slides. And then finally, there's also this twinning initiative between China's Tianjin city as well as Singapore, where actually both governments work together to make Tianjin an eco-friendly and a sustainable city. And waste management is actually an important part of this initiative. So as we can see, there's a series of good practices ranging from laws to municipal cooperation and also public-private partnerships. Okay, so now we go into gender and the circular economy. Okay, so the question would be, why do we even need to focus on gender in the circular economy? The reason is because women play very important roles in actually dealing with the waste at home. If you think about your own families, right, it would be, if you are female, then it might be yourself or your mothers who are actually the ones who are dealing with the waste. Or if you are men, then you might be thinking, who deals with the waste? When you were younger, it was probably your mother or the domestic help. And, now maybe, your wives. So because women are the ones who actually deal with the waste in households, it is actually very important to get their insights so that, waste management processes and systems can be designed in an effective way. And then I just listed out basically a finding from Indonesia, which actually confirms this global observation. The other thing would be that there is actually a sort of a proven behavioral dimension that women tend to also focus more on environmental protection when they are actually convinced of it, and they tend to actually advocate more. As we can see actually today among our panels, the 2 private sector initiatives are actually by women. So it goes to prove my point on the behavioral dimension, and therefore it is actually very worth it. Is in terms of per unit marginal utility, is actually very worthwhile to invest in educating women so that they can contribute to the circular economy. Okay, so then we talked about the roles of women in the household in regards to the circular economy. Now we talk about women in the waste management sector in itself. So we see that women in the waste management sector, they're usually focused on the so-called lower tier jobs. For example, they segregate the waste, and usually these jobs are informal. So what does it mean when we say these jobs are informal? It means that the wages are low. It also means that there is very little social protection benefits. So for example, they might not get social security contributions. They might not have a family leave or maternity leave or sick leave. So women do not get social protection. They get lower wages. And also they are actually, because they are the ones at the dump sites, right? So they're actually having higher health risk because they actually inhale the noxious fumes. And then finally, when there are economic downturns in the waste sector, women are always the first to bear the brunt. So this is why it is important for us to note how women work in the sector. Importantly, research actually shows, so there was research in actually Mongolia that shows that when the roles increasingly become formalized, so when the jobs increasingly get social protection, a lot of the work end up going to the men. So women actually lose their jobs once the economic activity becomes formalized. So that's also an important point to note. And then when we look at the role of men, we see that men focuses on the higher tier. They are managers, in government, they also do urban planning. So they tend to actually work in the jobs with higher wages. And I just wanted to say that this was also the findings here were corroborated with research. There was a UNDP in-depth research on Bhutan, Nepal, and Mongolia. So we have 2 examples from South Asia. Okay, then in my last slide on recommendations, I actually have, so the discussion would be really what should we do then, right? To ensure that, women's perspectives and the women's welfare is actually integrated into the waste management sector. So the first thing is, and to all the government officials over here, and I'm looking at also the Deputy Secretary, when Pakistan is going to do, for example, the Circular Economy Action Plan, because I understand that there is no action plan right now. So when the circular action plan is going to be developed, please make sure that the perspective of women are incorporated. Have women who are waste pickers, for example, in the stakeholder discussion groups, so that their perspectives and their well-being can be reflected into policy. This is very important. And then also ensure, for example, that when we have processes in waste management, we mainstream gender, ensure that gender is mainstreamed. And also in the training of officials, when we talk about urban planning, when we talk about waste management training, always include a small session on, the role of women and how women are differently affected by different government policies. It's very important for the officials to understand that the waste management sector is not gender neutral. Okay, and then there are some more active policies. For example, perhaps we could have affirmative action, for example, quotas or reservations, so that more women end up working, let's say, as truck drivers, more women end up, in managerial roles. And then empower women entrepreneurs. We've seen that we've had 2 women entrepreneurs here now. Let's encourage more women entrepreneurs to come on board, with subsidies, with support, with training. And then I think one very important thing is to actually have sex disaggregated data in the waste management sector. For example, do we know how many women waste pickers are there in Pakistan right now? Probably not, no? Despite I see someone, our presenter from the Institute of Urbanism shaking the head. So it's very important because for us to make accurate policy, we need to know what the figures are. Yeah, and then there are some discussions on, let's say, training. But really, I think what is more important is we have to understand the roles that women face, the contributions that they make, and what are some constraints that are specific to women. And from there, we can develop policies to actually support both women and men in the sector. And then finally, to end, I just wanted to also share that SCAP stands very ready to support, be it SDPI, Institute of Urbanism, Government of Pakistan, in really mainstreaming gender into circular economy and waste management issues. So for example, when you develop your circular economy action plan, perhaps we could, provide some sensitization support or some policy reviews. And also when there is a development of infrastructure, for example, we listened to that there were 4 model villages that were in Pakistan. So how do we ensure that the infrastructure is gender responsive and inclusive? Because infrastructure is, of course, also not gender neutral. For example, do we have separate female toilets, where we actually have the hospital that is currently being proposed? So in the model village, for the waste pickers or for the waste management workers, it's very important to ensure gender inclusive infrastructure. And for that, I think we are there to support you in providing some technical advice in that area. Okay, so with that, I actually believe that, so I have some questions and this I will leave it during the overall discussion, but the 2 questions that perhaps we can also answer, during the open discussion is how can we leverage on women, to further support the economy? How can we partner more women, to contribute to the circular economy? And also, I'd like to know more about the good practices of women in the waste management sector in Pakistan. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephanie. Indeed, this was a very detailed discussion. And meanwhile, right now we have question and answer session. We have very short windows, and I have people who are counting on me, so I have to be quick. I will be having 2 to 3 questions for quick 5 minutes, and then we'll be moving towards the closing remarks of Dr. Muhammad Ali Malik. So we have question and answer session, and I would request Haris to assist me for passing the mic as well. So just, there's a mic, 5 minutes, and then we'll move towards the closing remarks. Ji.
Okay. Hello, myself is Jamshed Tariq, and I'm representing Park Mission Society. I have a question from Ms. Aisha particularly. I want to know that what was the sample size of your study? And second, is electronic waste is the part of your study? So if possible, you may answer this question. Thank you.
So we basically surveyed around 300 households in Islamabad and 300 households in Lahore, and no electronic waste was not a part of our study because we don't really have concrete policies around it, and it was very difficult to actually measure it without having a comprehensive framework. So no electronic waste was not a part of it. But yeah, 300 households in Islamabad and 300 in Lahore. And we will share the detailed study with you guys and also with STPI in a few weeks.
Yeah, next question, please.
Well, one thing more that, as you said, there's no proper framework or rules and regulation. So like I want to confirm from you, as you did the literature review, So what did literature review said about the electronic waste study? Do we have in Pakistan rules and regulation frameworks, etc.?
Hazardous waste policy, it does touch upon it a little. However, once again, we do not have a comprehensive framework to actually deal with it. But you can have a look at the hazardous waste policy 2022. It does touch upon it. So yeah.
Yeah, next question, please.
Okay, I'm Dr. Sofia Khalid from Environmental Sciences Department, Allama Iqbal Open University. I have two questions. First question is from Aisha and Mehrunisa. In the past, I had conducted a study about the behavior towards segregation of waste at household level. One of the interesting finding for me was that the companies, just like the Mehrunisa has or the other such companies that we have in the market. So they, unfortunately, they are not interested in household segregation of waste. So because their main business is through this recycling of that waste, and they prefer all to be collected and then segregated rather than household collection. So I would like to have your comment on that. And the other question is from Farah from Engro. You have presented about the initiative for plastic waste where you are converting into raisins, right? So my question is that why not work more on this, what we call as extended producer responsibility. So the companies, especially the drinking water companies with the plastic bottles, why not we apply the polluter pays principle to them, and why not invest on that they should be responsible for their if you find in the waste let's say a bottle of Aquafina or of Nestle or any other brand, then they should be fined for that. I think they should be responsible for the collection of that waste or of that plastic, or they make such arrangements for that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Sophia. Okay, so I can't speak for other companies, but I mean, for us, we have a few hundred households who are segregating and recycling with us. About 1/3 of the waste that we collect every month does come from households. So I wouldn't say that we're not interested. I would say rather it's that households are not that interested in segregating their waste at source. I mean, if that is done, then I mean, there are a lot of people who would be happy to take it. I don't think there's any issue with that, but it has to be segregated. That's, I think, where the hurdle lies.
So, Mehrunisa just said, like I also mentioned during the presentation, that they were only interested in segregating it as far as they would get some sort of benefit from it. But once again, we need to factor this into consideration that they already do segregate food waste. So they don't throw food waste away. Most of the households reported that, especially when it comes to roti or cooked food, they don't throw it away. They either give it to someone, or most of them were also giving it to their milkmen as well. So they're not throwing away food waste, but yes, they would want to segregate waste if they get something for that in return, because they do not currently see any value in doing that right now, because they say that the informal waste pickers are already doing this job. So why do we have to do it when we're not getting any benefit from it? So I think the behavioral aspect of it is very important when we talk about waste segregation at source. So that was something that we observed in Islamabad and in Lahore as well.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. We have people from academia, researchers, experts, and meanwhile, media personnel as well from different channels. So they have so many questions, but I do understand we are also running out of time, and we need to cover it up as well. Right now, I would like to request Dr. Muhammad Ali Malik, who is currently serving as Deputy Secretary in Prime Minister Youth Program, and he brings over 2 decades of versatile experience in public service and administration. So for his closing remarks as chair of the session, please. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Institute of Urbanism and SDPI for inviting me, and apologies apologies for joining late because I was stuck in some meeting. So I've heard about the discussion, and I found it very interesting, and some of very useful insights provided by our panelists. So like they were talked about the issues and challenges and some solutions, how we can go about it and how we can create awareness and link that to the waste management with some sort of economic interest, and then how we can build effective partnerships and collaborations. And as Dr. Bishnu said about the policy level support and the various drivers of conflict, and then as Farab talked about their very interesting project of Angro, where they can use and convert waste as a resource, and then about their seed investment fund. And finally, Ms. Lee Stephanie for focusing more on the gender inclusion, how we can engage women into this solid waste management. And also, we've talked about this entrepreneurship and skills training and capacity building of our youth for this very critical issue for Pakistan. As you all know, that Pakistan is one of the most vulnerable countries from the climate change. So I'll talk about a bit about our program, Prime Minister's Youth Program, which we are doing. So I set the context that, as we know that according to the latest census, almost 70% of our population is under the age of 30 years. So the latest census, according to latest census, we are 241 million, and its 70% becomes around 170 million. So 170 million people are under the age of 30 years in Pakistan right now. And youth, we are defining 15 to 29 years of age. There is no hard and fast definition. UN follows 15 to 24. ASEAN countries, they follow 18 to 35. Commonwealth is following 15 to 29, and we are also following the same. And in Pakistan, we are classifying youth between the age of those between the age of 15 to 29 years. So those 15 to 29 years age brackets, so the population size is around 60 million. So 60 million people are between 15 to 29 years, and 110 million people are below the age of 15. So a huge chunk of adolescent and young persons, they are coming towards the job market where they need skills, they need education and different opportunities. And also, we should note that every year, 6 million persons are adding to this population size. And the demographics we have right now, they are saying that this graph and this trajectory will go on till 2050. And after 2050, we can expect that, okay, the graph may stabilize, and then we can witness some downward trend. So we have a huge young population. So how we can create opportunities for them? As you all know, that youth is basically a devolved subject, and the provinces are responsible right now. They have their own youth departments in every province. And before 2010, there used to be a Ministry of Youth Affairs at the federal level. But after the 18th constitutional amendment, that youth ministry was devolved, and all the provinces were asked that you are responsible for the youth development. So what we witnessed after that, since it's a cross-cutting subject, when you are talking of youth, basically we are talking of young people who are passing through a certain phase of their life. Like a 10 to 14 years young kid have different needs from a 24 to 29 years old young man, because they are in their different phase of life. So what we need, that youth lens, that how we can enable that young person by taking into account their peculiar needs or their particular phase of life. So under Prime Minister's Youth Program, we designed our program based on, we call it 4E's model. It's education, employment, engagement, and now we recently added the fourth one, which is environment. So how we can provide quality education for our young people, how we can enable them to get gainful employment, how we can meaningfully engage our young people, and how we can sensitize and involve and engage our young people towards this very important area of environment and climate change. So we are running different initiatives under each of the 4 pillars we have, which includes under the education, we run a skills development program with the support of NAFTEC. Then we are providing laptops to our university students. Then we have our Prime Minister's Youth Business and Agriculture Loan Scheme. Basically, here comes that entrepreneurship side, because we want our young people to become entrepreneurs rather than just seeking for their jobs. And by becoming successful entrepreneurs, they can become job creators rather than just job seekers. So our number one priority is how we can enable our young people so that they could become entrepreneurs or make them self-employed by giving them the right skills, particularly in the freelancing or digital skills. So under the skills development program, we are providing those digital and high-tech skills so that our young people could learn those skills and they could become self-employed, they could become freelancer or start some home-based business, and particularly the women. So in this program, we under the Prime Minister's Youth Business and Agricultural Loan Scheme, we have allocated a minimum quota of 25% for our young women entrepreneurs. But right now we are falling short of our target. Right now, almost 10% women are getting the loans, and there are multiple factors and reasons for that. So we need to work on that, how our opportunities or the apprenticeship opportunities or on-job training opportunities, some mentoring or coaching opportunities, they will be available under that employment pillar on that digital youth hub. And then we have established a single integrated national job portal, where the idea is to convert all the public, private, or overseas employment opportunities at that single national job portal. Right now, we have different segregated portals, like we bring on that portal. Rosie is now at our portal. Brightspire is at our portal. And in public sector, we have federal government job opportunities. The portal was developed by NITB. That portal has been integrated there. Then NAFTEC has developed a portal for skills related jobs or blue collar jobs. We have integrated that skills portal with that national job portal. And similarly, the Bureau of Immigration, they are running their own portal where they are publishing the overseas employment opportunities. So we also integrated that overseas employment opportunities portal with that national single national job portal. And again, the idea is that a young person who is looking for some job, they can see and then they can redirect to that relevant area. And then under the engagement, I've told you already the opportunities. And then for the environment, we have our Green Youth Movement, where we have already established 137 Green Youth Movement clubs in public sector universities across Pakistan. And they have their executive council in the form of a green captain and vice captain and then thematic leads. The gym project is designed around 5 thematic areas, and solid waste management is one of the thematic area of the Green Youth Movement. And with the support of British Council, we are developing a learning management system, which will also be integrated with this digital youth hub, where we will provide the capacity building trainings, leadership trainings, or green skills to our members of the green clubs, and then we are also expanding its network to other private universities and the schools as well. So in the coming month, we are organizing a water conservation conference in Quetta at Butams, and then that will be followed by a regional conference on solid waste management that we are planning to be held at Lahore. So I think the huge number we have of our young people, if we want to move forward, we need to channelize their raw energy and potential into the right direction. And that can only be possible by building effective and strong partnerships and collaborations. Because it's such a cross-cutting level. Like I always said that the SDG 17 is the mother of all goals, because the goals are so cross-cutting that they can only be achieved by working together, by working in collaboration, and by creating synergies and breaking silos. Because if we work alone, and so it will be very difficult for a country like Pakistan, who's already the 5th most populous country in the world with such a large number of young populations. So I look forward to all of you and all the organizations here that Prime Minister's Youth Program is open to all kinds of partnerships, and by exchanging ideas, how we can be more effective, how we can optimally utilize our resources in the best possible way. So we are always welcome. Our office is at the Prime Minister's office, and we have the address of our portal is pmyp.gov.pk, Prime Minister's Youth Program, pmyp.gov.pk. And we also have our mobile application. So you can reach out to us, you can give us your feedback, your suggestions, your input, how we can be more effective, how we can work together to empower our young people in a meaningful way, not just talking here and having, so we want some actions, and our young people also expects from us that we do something in some tangible work and do some action for them. So thank you very much for your patience hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you indeed. Thank you very much. And now I would like to thank the esteemed panel members who are present over here. A big applause for them. They have been very to the point and precise for the topic. And also, I really appreciate the presence of all of you. And thank you all on the behalf of Institute of Urbanism, HBS, who has been in collaboration for bringing this panel to you. And thank you for the STPI as well for this session. And meanwhile, I would also like to thank the members from Institute of Urbanism, Founding Executive Director, and Samima Durrani, Head of Operations, Dr. Ijaz Ahmed, Senior Program Fellow, Institute of Urbanism, Taiba, Haris, and Aisha, and Hussein as well, particularly, and all the members, whoever are present over here from STPA as well for this very conference. And right now, the most favorite session of mine, I must say, session for Shields, and I would request Dr. Muhammad Ali Malik to present Shields to the esteemed panel members, and request the assistance of Taiba as well in it. So first of all, Shield from Dr. Muhammad Ali Malik to Ms. Mehrunisa Malik. Then the next souvenir goes to Ms. Farha Rashid from Sustainability Lead at Angro Foundation. Then Dr. Vishnu Raj Upreti, Research Director at NCCR. And then we have Ms. Stephanie Chu from ISCAP. And then we have Aisha Majid for the souvenir. I would request Ms. Samima Durrani, Head of Operations, Institute of Urbanism, to please come on stage to present the souvenir to Dr. Ali Malik. Sahab. I thank you all for the presence in this very session, and now the group photo with the panel members and the people present over here will be moving toward the tea for after the group photo. Thank you very much indeed.